Hey artist friends, I am thrilled and excited and overjoyed to share with you this little project I've been working on the last couple months. My first set of stencils with StencilGirl. So let me introduce you to my 4 new stencils. This first one is called Wonky Leaves, and you not only get a stencil with it, but you also get the mask. I love the versatility that comes with this, having a mask and a stencil for so many amazing mixed media techniques in your art journal or artwork. You may recognize this design as I took it exactly from one of my 30-minute Thursday journal pages. I love how it turned out. I love how I drew it, and I knew I couldn't replicate it, so I needed to make a stencil of it. It is slightly smaller than my journal page. It's a 6x6 stencil, but it is absolutely perfect for so many uses. I have so many ideas, and I can't wait to play with it more than I already have. Second stencil in the lineup is called Triangle Leaves, and it is also a mask and a stencil combo. Much like the other stencil, Wonky Leaves, this may look familiar to you as well, as I also grabbed it from one of my journal pages. I am so excited to continue to explore this motif in my artwork, just like I did on a recent journal page in my 30-minute Thursday. Again, this one's a little smaller, the stencil is 6x6, and the journal page is a little larger, but it is so versatile, and I am just over the moon excited to play with it even more in my artwork. While I was creating and playing with those triangle leaves in Photoshop, I noticed that the stems kind of looked like reflections, and so I got to thinking, what if I flipped it over, kind of doubled it, made it reflect, and that's how this third stencil, Triangle Leaf Reflections, came to be. It wasn't planned, it was a happy accident. My fourth stencil is going to be the hardest one for me to talk about. I called it Bean Toes, and I created it after my gray kitty who we said goodbye to just a year ago. I couldn't pick just one photo, so you're seeing several photos of my buddy Grayson there to the right. He was a character, and I absolutely loved his little bean toes. I love the stencil because you can isolate the different parts of it to create so many fun and unique patterns, and you can't really tell that they're cat prints. I used this photo that I took of Gray Kitty's bean toes the day before we said goodbye to create this stencil. We said goodbye to our Gray Kitty March 6th of last year, and I'm not sure the release date of my stencils, but the day that I'm recording this is the day before I took that photo and 2 days before we said goodbye. So this is really bittersweet, and I'm doing a good job holding back my tears. Recently, I discovered how much I enjoyed cyanotyping with stencils, and I'll link that tutorial below. But one of the first things I wanted to do with my stencils, besides playing with them, spray painting them, was also cyanotyping with them. So I made these really neat tags with that Wonky Leaf stencil, this print with the Triangle Leaf stencil. You can see how that stencil fits right on top of that Cyanotype to make that really unique print. Some of them have double stems because the wind blew it a tiny bit, but I think that looks really cool. The print for the Triangle Leaf Reflection stencil. I love how this looks either the way that I intended it or flipping it over to the side. I also really like how those lines line up and the pattern these triangles make. I am super excited to explore this a lot in my art journaling. More than I already have, like I keep saying, because I've already played with these stencils a lot. All of the videos of my playtime will be linked below as well. And here's the Bean Toes Cyanotype. Also printed the Wonky Leaf stencil, not the masks like I did on the tags, and here's how that turned out. Isn't this amazing? Cyanotypes and stencils are like the perfect match. When these stencils arrived to me in the mail, I was so excited to open the package that I forgot to film like an opening or an unveiling of them, so they're really dirty. In my little intro video here, I had a lot of fun playing with them, with my paint, with spray paint, and I took the time and actually recorded that, and that's coming up now for you to see. I want you to see my playtime, the first time that I'm playing with my new stencils. I was really nervous and excited and couldn't wait to play with them. You're going to see me spray painting with my stencils and creating some fun background papers in my Nicole style with Payne's Gray and walnut ink. So let's get to that playtime and see the clean stencils. For this playtime, I'm using a bunch of papers that I had already splashed paint on, like Payne's Gray and walnut ink. And so now the first one I'm playing with is the wonky leaves. I cut out the masks from the stencil. I'm going to use Payne's Gray through a foam applicator and just simply pounce it, spread it evenly on my background stencil here. And just see, this is my first time making sure the stencil came out as I designed it. I am so excited and nervous as I'm doing this. I want it to turn out perfectly. I want the stencil to be okay. I want it to look cool. I'm just super thrilled and excited, and look at it. It is exactly how I intended. Now I'm going to kind of distress that stencil a little bit like I like to do, using a little bit of watered down Payne's Gray to just kind of bring a little bit more life and character to the stencil. Like I mentioned a little bit ago, I love the versatility of the stencil. Besides the mask that comes with it, you can also flip it over and have a completely different look. So I'm going to flip it over and stencil another one of those three leaves, I don't know. That one right there that I'm stenciling. I'm also going to add it to the paper. Now I'm going to try out the triangle leaf stencil with that same process. This one also comes with the masks, don't forget, but I'm just testing out the actual stencil right now. I love how this looks, and I can see flipping it over and adding a whole nother field of triangle leaves next to it. I think I'm going to try that next on one of my journal pages. Now I'm just distressing the stencil a little bit, adding a little bit of watered down Payne's Gray, kind of removing a little bit of the paint from the triangle leaves, just giving it a little bit more definition, dimension, a little bit more character. Next, I picked up the bean toes stencil. For the first print from this one, I decided to completely cover a page like I enjoy doing. I wanted to see how this looked as a repeated pattern. I'd been working with this stencil for a while, just in the little 6x6 version, but I knew I wanted to use it as a repeating pattern as well, so that was one of the first things I wanted to explore. Because this is a repeating pattern, you can reline up the stencil every time you want to continue the pattern. So to make sure that it was lined up, I just simply put that first row of bean toes on top of the one that I just stenciled and continued the pattern. And I'm going to do the same thing here as well to continue with another row of those cute little bean toes. I love making these background sheets. They come in so handy as you're art journaling to just grab a little piece of something to add to your page. I have several tutorials already on my YouTube channel where I make fun background papers like this, but it is like so much fun to do it with my own stencils this time. Aren't these little bean toes so cute all lined up? I love the little pattern that they create with the larger toe pad and the smaller little toe pads. You can't always tell that they're cat prints. My husband actually said they look like rain clouds, and I had thought the same thing too. They're just fun and versatile and just give me a huge smile to think that my little buddy who had his little feet all over my artwork all the time in my art studio, I can continue to put his little paw prints here and there as I create in my art journal. I I also think this stencil has a completely different look to it when you turn it to the side, not in the direction that I intended originally when I designed it. And so turning it to the side gives it a completely different look. So now I'm printing it sideways, and that looks so different. That's how I made that repeating pattern earlier. And the next paper that I do, I'm going to turn it the correct way. And you can see how different each use of the stencil gives this fun little pattern. Many of you who have your own little studio cat know how much they get their little paw prints all over your artwork. And even if you don't have a studio cat, let me give you a little piece of my buddy Grayson to add to your artwork. Here's one more testing of the bean toast stencil. I've already spray painted with it at this point, so the stencil's a little bit black, but I also wanted to try it out the other way so you could see just how different the pattern looks if you have it the intended way that I designed it, or if you just turn it over a tiny bit. You can see on the left and the right how it gives it a completely different look. I see so many different fun patterns in this stencil that I'm looking forward to exploring in my artwork. I've already added it to a journal page, and I'm linking all of those below, and it looked so neat. You couldn't even tell that they were cat prints. It's such a fun, unique pattern, and I truly hope that you enjoy using these stencils as much as I enjoyed creating them and also using them myself. The links to all of the stencils, some of the supplies I'm using, and all of the tutorial videos will be below in the description box. And lastly, here's the triangle leaf reflection, the accidental stencil that I had no intention on creating. It just happened, and it might just be my favorite of the four. Well, I'm kind of partial to bean toes, but I think because this one was unintended and I didn't plan it and it just happened, it is so much fun. And the journal page that I created with it is so different. You'll be surprised to see that it came out of my studio. It will be linked below as well. I can see so many uses for this one and the triangle leaves. I think they can look like things hanging from a ceiling. If you turn it sideways, you could use the lines, you could use the little triangle patterns. I think it's so much fun, and I am really actually super excited to see how you use my stencils. I know how my creative brain sees them, but there's nothing more rewarding than seeing how you take something that I envisioned and how I want to use it in my artwork, but then use it in your own way. So if you grab my stencils, and I hope that you do, make sure that you tag me on Instagram. If you're not on Instagram, send me a photo. My email is on YouTube at the very last line. I think it's like about the channel or something like that. My email is there. Send me a picture of what you create because I would love to see how you use my stencils. I figured this wonky leaf stencil was going to be my favorite because I really love the pattern of this leaf that I drew, which is why I wanted to make a stencil of it. So I wanted to use it one more time to play with it again. So here's a little bonus footage of wonky leaves. Now I'm just going to add a little bit of walnut ink to these leaves. I like adding some walnut ink into some of my stencils to give it a little of a distressed look or a little bit more of a dimension to it, and just adding that touch of walnut ink in there gives the leaves just another fun little look. Besides creating fun background papers and using stencils in my journal, another favorite thing to do is to spray paint with them. So I'm going to spend some time here spray painting with all of my stencils and stamping with them. This is my favorite spray paint to use in my studio. It doesn't have a really strong odor to it. It kind of almost smells kind of earthy, I like to say. And here I spray painted it on top of the mask and the stencil, and look how amazing that looks. Then I took a piece of ledger paper, stamped it on top of it to pick up all that extra spray paint that was on top of the stencil for a reverse print. And I'm continuing that same process with these triangle leaves. If you have never stamped with one of your stencils, I highly recommend trying it. It's probably another one of my favorite ways to use a stencil is to use it as a stamp. Lots of times I'll use a gel plate. I'll put acrylic paint on top of the gel plate, put the stencil into it, push it down, pull it up, and use it as a stamp that way on my art journal page. Or I do this. I'll spray paint on it, flip it over, press the reverse onto the piece of paper, and there I have a beautiful stamp, and oh my goodness, I absolutely love how that one turned out. And here's a few sprays and stamps of that bean toast stencil as well. So all 4 of these stencils are available now from StencilGirl. Links to them will be in the description box below, links to my tutorial videos, to supplies, to anything I've mentioned unless I forget, and if I forget, leave me a comment and let me know. And don't forget to tag me on Instagram when you play with these stencils because I want to see what you create. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're just as excited as I am about these new stencils that I created with StencilGirl.